We've been calling this whole thing knowledge is power, because I truly believe that the more you know about what's going on with yourself, with your loved ones, with your family members, the better equipped you are to help and handle it. If you don't know and you don't understand, then here you are. It's just happening. Why can't I see as well now as I did when I was 20? Well, there's lots of reasons. It's because of the way our eyes age, and it's why I now wear glasses when I never did. And it's why cataracts develops and all kinds of other things. So if we can explain it to you and you understand it, anybody can handle anything they understand, right? It's the not knowing sometimes. I can handle a bad diagnosis as long as I know what's going on. It's not knowing that's sometimes really frustrating. So we started this up a few months back, and we do it here every second Thursday of the month, right after your all's dinner hour, and Solstice lets me come in and bug you. And we see our little man there. He is now 2 months old. Tom and Jamie are back to work, so I'm a little less stressed. Not going to turn completely gray before they do this again. So a little bit of a review. First time we got together, we talked a lot about Alzheimer's and dementia. We talked about some of the things that we get confused about with helping our loved ones. One day they can do it and the next day they can't. Are they pulling our leg or what's going on? And we explained that it's truly brain damage. And so there is a reason why the husband that never knew where his socks were for 30 years, and he comes and he says, "Where's my socks?" Today he's saying, "Where's my socks?" He truly doesn't understand. So we talked about that. We explained a little bit about the whole neurons and everything that's going on and why, and we came to a little bit more of an understanding. And we're going to visit it again, not next month, but probably the following. So we'll start to repeat ourselves a little bit. And we talked about ageism. This one's the one that is really dear to my heart. I hate when somebody emphasizes an adult. Trust me, you guys hate it. You hate when somebody treats you like you're a child because maybe you're not as young as you once were. Maybe you're a little differently abled now. Not disabled, differently abled. You're still able. It's just in a different way. And I hate to see somebody treat an older person like they're a child. And I see it all the time. So ageism is a discrimination based on your age. We do it with little kids. Terrible twos really don't exist. They're terrible at 3. It's not, we do it. We think that all teenagers are irresponsible. We have prejudices that are based on people's ages. And ageism against older people is the one prejudice that we may hold in our youth that we're all headed towards. So there was a day when each of you that are sitting here thought, they're too old for that. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. We think those things when we're young, and then when we get old, we're like, hey, why are they talking about me like that? It's because it's those prejudices that exist. So we talked a lot about that one. We've talked about tips and tricks in caregiving, things that just help caregivers and you understand things a little better. We talked about skin integrity. Why is your skin so thin and why does it tear so easy now? Why do I bruise so easy? All of those things. We've talked about those. And we'll visit them again. We talked about my favorite, incontinence. You guys don't like this, but I do, because it needs to be normalized. Why do I think incontinence needs to be normalized? Because incontinence causes the majority of our health issues as we age because of an embarrassment. We don't clean ourselves well because, well, we don't really leak. We don't protect ourselves well because we don't really leak. And we need to normalize it. Why is it such a problem? Well, I did this when I was potty training my children. And now I realize it's one of the lies that adversely affects aging. I used to tell my babies, my kids, only babies pee their pants. Only babies mess their pants. Or, as Donna, big girls don't mess in their pants. Big boys don't mess their pants. So we grow up hearing these things and we believe that. We teach it to our kids. And then when we get my age, a little older, maybe a little younger, depending on things, and older than that, and we have these accidents, our brain automatically triggers, only babies mess their pants. And I'm embarrassed by the fact that I mess my pants. We have to normalize this. It's part of aging. Not having full bladder control is normal. It's not abnormal. So when we start realizing that and we start saying, hey, you know what? There's 40-year-olds that are doing the same thing I'm doing. And this isn't out of the ordinary. When we stop treating it like it's just something that affects little kids or little kids do, and we stop calling briefs diapers and stop and give dignity back, then we're going to make all kinds of headway. I see so many issues with cognitive decline based on UTIs. And a lot of times it's, well, I'm not changing my pad or my brief because they don't want to admit that there's a problem going on. So that's one of my favorite topics. Not one of your alls, but one that I will admit I truly have an issue with, stress incontinence. Can't jump on a trampoline. Haven't been able to since the birth of my 4th child. I'm certainly not going to be able to do it ever. So it's normal. We talked about this one, diagnosis. We've all had some time or someone that's had a bad diagnosis. So we talked about dealing with that, but then we talked about the anticipatory grief. Anticipatory grief is that grief before someone dies. That grief of, I never expected my life today to be what my life is today. I had all these plans. I was supposed to. I thought we would. But he got cancer, or she got cancer, or I got cancer, or he has Alzheimer's, I have Alzheimer's. All those things that we thought, we grieve what we hoped for, we grieve what we wanted. And it's called an anticipatory grief because the person's still here, you're still here, but you're grieving what you thought you would have, okay? And we all deal with it, no matter what our age is. We deal with it as parents. We thought we were going to give birth to the most perfect child ever. They would never cry. We thought our teenagers would never be a problem because we were going to be almighty and good. Those things aren't true. And so we get frustrated and we grieve. And as we age, we grieve over the things that we hoped for. And then we talked a lot about hospice. So we talked about hospice isn't giving up. A lot of people have this mindset, and it's like that only babies mess their pants. Well, hospice is the nail in the coffin. And it's not. It's not. It is a very essential part of care. It's something that not you want to look forward to, but something you don't want to fear. Something that you want to understand more of. And so we talked really in depth about understanding what hospice is about and why it's a necessary part of our care and something that you would want. What else have we talked about? We talked about advanced planning. This was a big one and you guys liked it a lot. We talked about not giving the idiot son-in-law or son or the family member that's lost 4 houses, never been able to pay a bill on time, the keys to the kingdom, and putting them in charge of all of your stuff. We talked about that. There's some people, for whatever reason, they think, well, I have to let my son handle this, or I have to let my daughter handle this. No, you don't. And we're going to talk more about that tonight. So we talked about starting that conversation. Nobody wants to talk about death. But we need to. Because there's not any person in this room right now that isn't going to die. I mean, we can throw some faith things in there and say maybe we won't, but the reality is we are all going to leave this earth, okay? We need to talk about that. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until you're on hospice, you're on oxygen, you're being medicated, and decide, oh, I need to sign the power of attorney over, because maybe that's too late. Maybe it's a little bit too late sometimes to think about who we want to handle things or how we want to be taken care of. Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? Do you want an open casket? Do you want a closed casket? If you're back east, you want to be in a casket. If you're out here, you want to be cremated. Do I want my funeral in 3 days or in 6 days? What kind of music do I want? Those are choices you get to make. And you should already have a plan for it. it's uncomfortable. My kids hate that I talk about my own death as much as I do, but I do. I've told them what songs I want. They know my daughter's supposed to sing at my funeral. And not because she's happy, but because I love her voice and I want her to be there and sing. So there are things that we need to talk about, and we need to be real with one another. Don't wait until all of a sudden it's too late and your kid's left holding the bag going, I don't know what to do. What's the password for the cell phone? What bills are due this month? What was I supposed to do? Is there a mortgage? Isn't there? Have that conversation now. And last month we talked about understanding the aging process. There's a lot to understand. That's the eyes, that's the skin, that's the incontinence, that's all of the things that affect each of us as we age. You know, I'm not the same person I was when I was 20. My bender's broke. I don't bend over as well as I used to. Nor do you, okay? And unfortunately, our balances aren't the same thing, and a lot of things change. So we talked a lot about why. And we talked about the fact that we age forward. We don't age backwards. That goes back into we do not ever pause for a second. Miss Kay, get in here. You were late.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You're forgiven. You're here. So we talked about that aging doesn't go this direction. You don't reach this and then all of a sudden you're a baby again. And I hate that when people do that. We're not going to fly a helicopter into your mouth to get you to open your mouth to feed you. But yes, there may come a time when somebody has to lift the spoon for you. It may happen. And don't be ashamed or embarrassed by the fact that it may happen. It happens to a lot of us. We were talking in the office the other day, yesterday as a matter of fact. I remember in my youth saying, if I ever end up in a wheelchair, take me to a mountain and shove me off. Okay? That was how I felt. I was very athletic. I was fit. I felt like I was invincible, as most young people do. I was in my 30s. I spent a year in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk from here to that door for a physical reason. I have an autoimmune disease. And so until that got diagnosed and figured out and medicated, I had no legs. Had I taken that mindset and allowed it to push me through, I would have given up. And a lot of people do. And that's why I've come to that term. We're not disabled, we're differently abled. Okay? You didn't expect to be the ages you are sitting in this room today with walkers and canes and wheelchairs and Mobies. That wasn't what you thought when you were in your youth. It's where you are today. And sometimes we focus way too much on what we've lost and not what we still have. And that's what we need to do, because that's where the quality in aging comes from. So we talked a lot about that. And tonight, we're going to talk mostly about this. Protections, rights, and discounts too. So aging it's not all bad things, right? There are those discounts that we get. But protections and rights, there are some actual protections that come as you age, okay? They may not seem like a lot. They should be there, and I can guarantee you that there are people out there that are stomping on them and stepping on them every single day. And I'll share a story of what happened today in a minute. And it changed a lot of what we're going to talk about here. So I'm going to read this to you, and please forgive me if I offend anyone. My mom loved this poem as she aged. The golden years have come at last. I cannot see, I cannot pee, I cannot chew, I cannot screw. My memory stinks, my memory shrinks, my hearing stinks. No sense of smell, I look like hell. My body's drooping, I have trouble pooping. The golden years have come at last. The golden years can kiss my... It's there with some dollar signs. But it's not all that bad, okay? Everything about aging isn't bad. There are some good perks to aging. There really are, okay? I can think of a few. Can you guys think of any? You're more financially secure most of the time than you are in your youth when you're raising your kids. You get to have free time. There are some perks, okay? And it's not all bad. You get to live in cool communities. You get to have friends, okay? You do have freedoms. You get to travel more as you age. And I realize that when you get closer towards the end, some of those things are taken back away. But there are benefits to aging, and we can't always focus on that fountain of youth and what it would have been like. So, I'm a senior, where's my discount? So let me tell you, I pulled up at a drive-through one time, and I made my order, and I got up to the window, and the young man inside, who was about a Doogie Howser age, I think he was 12, he said, oh, I got to put your 10% discount on here. I'm like, oh, it's senior discount. And I was offended. I'm like, what are you talking about? Now, if he'd have said, it's a 10% discount because you're driving a white truck, I would have said, I'm driving this truck through this drive-through every time because I'll take that 10% and put it in my pocket, right? But no, it was because I have whiter hair, right? And I was offended. I'm like, are you kidding me? You can't give me a senior discount. And I argued with this guy that I wanted to pay more money. How stupid was that? Why would anybody ever argue to give more money to somebody? Now, when they do that, I'm like, thank you. I still like to tease about it because I'm still under the guidelines of the senior discount, but not far. But if they offer it and they give it to me, I'm taking it. So, and I say this in all reality, there are discounts that you may not realize are available to you based on your age. So, how many of you have a cell phone? Pretty much everybody. Do you take a senior discount from your cell phone provider? You should be asking. You should ask everything you do. If you order from Rite Aid, if you order from the grocery store, if you go to get something to eat, there are senior discounts almost everywhere. Take it. Take it. I promise you those corporate millionaires don't need that 10% any more than you do. So take it. There are many, many benefits. Travel benefits are huge in your senior years. They are. Airlines, car rentals, hotel stays. It's crazy how much you can. Somebody figured it out that with the senior benefits, they could live on a cruise ship. And I don't say this to empty your building out. They could live on a cruise ship cheaper than they could live in an assisted living because of all the senior benefits. So, it's a thought. Not that I want you moving out. I'm just saying. So be thoughtful when you're shopping. And I'm guaranteeing you could use the money more than they could. So ask for the discounts. Don't be ashamed or embarrassed by it. I'm not anymore. VA benefits. How many of you here are veterans or spouses of veterans? Widows. Okay. And that spousalship needed to end in a passing, so widowed, widower, not a divorce. So there are some that can say, yeah, I was married to a veteran. I was married to a veteran. If it ended in divorce, that's not there. But there are benefits. Please understand there are potential benefits that can be very lucrative for spouses of veterans and veterans if they served during wartime. And that may not necessarily be a boots on the ground kind of thing. That's all up in the air with the VA and the DD-214. It's a government program, so much like pouring molasses on a cold Canadian day, it's going to be slow, but when it comes, it comes. So, and there are other agencies that assist in that, okay, and assist you to get those benefits. So check it out. Don't ever let a penny that they've got that you could have go ungotten, okay? Take everything you can get. And I think for a couple right now, it's like almost $2,600 a month for the aid and attendance package. Widows, I think it might be around 14. I haven't looked at the new measurements, but it's a lot. 2024. Yeah, Okay. So that's a lot of money a month. You figure 12 months out of the year, you're giving away a lot of money if you don't. $15,000, who couldn't put that in their pocket? So we all know what the Bill of Rights is, right? We have this wonderful Constitution that was written, and then a few years later, somebody went, well, wait a minute. We didn't think about this, and we didn't think about this, and we didn't think about this, and we didn't think about that. And so then they made the amendments to the Constitution, okay? The first 10 are called the Bill of Rights. They're pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Most people have their favorite one or two, and it may be two. If you know the Bill of Rights, you just know I quoted the Second Amendment. But then you've always got the Fifth Amendment, so you can't prosecute me if I'm not going to testify against myself. So we have those amendments that went in. There are currently 27 different amendments to our Constitution, okay? The last time the Constitution was amended, just because I'm a geek and I know this stuff, was in 1996, okay? At one point, we had to actually do an amendment that told us that Congress couldn't give themselves a raise. Isn't that foolish? It's like saying, hey, Jamie, you're in charge of your own raise from now on, okay? So we actually had to think about and make an amendment to keep people from doing that. So a Bill of Rights is just literally legal mumbo jumbo that helps protect people, right? So you will always be entitled as citizens of the United States to what's governed under the Bill of Rights. Those are your civil rights, right? Okay. Boop. Seniors have their own set of rights. One being, you are entitled to be treated with respect. Believe it or not, it is part of a senior citizen's right to be treated with respect and dignity, okay? So if you feel like you're in a position or in a place where somebody is not treating you with the rights that have been bestowed upon you because you are a protected citizen. So outside, I'm a citizen. That's it. I end there. I'm a citizen. Anybody over the age of 60 here, some places 65, are protected citizens, okay? You are protected under a whole other set of rules that didn't actually get established until the 50s, and it's been kind of morphed since then, all the way up to 2010. But that's when senior citizens were actually protected, that you can't be abused. You can't be mistreated. Why did we ever have to make a law that said that? It's beyond me. But we are dumb enough that we had to make a law that said that you are allowed to be safe. Isn't that stupid to think that we would have to tell other people, you can't pick on a senior citizen because they are protected? And I understand that that protects you no more than a piece of paper protects anybody, right? Because people still treat you or can treat you poorly. It happens, and I know it does. And we're going to devil into a whole lot of what they do that's not okay. But you are allowed to have a safe space. You're allowed to be safe in your own home, free from any abuse. That is physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, and financial abuse. You are the biggest group for financial abuse. Why? Couple reasons. There's more money in the seniors than there are in our young people. You have your life savings for the most part, and I understand that many people live on fixed income, so you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, more money. I'm broke as a joke. I got that too. But there is usually more financial security in our aging population. There's also a little more trust and naivety to how terrible people can be, okay? There's a little more trust when you hear your grandson on the phone saying, Grandma, I'm in Mexico and they're arresting me and I need you to wire $20,000. And it's your grandson's voice, because guess what? AI is that daggone good. Artificial intelligence is so good that they can go into a social media account, they can pick up that voice off of a video, They can copy that voice. They can find out that they're related to you, and they can call you using that voice and convince you that that poor grandchild or child or granddaughter or neighbor's friend, whoever is in trouble, and you need to wire them money. And it's happening astronomical rates.
Wow.
It's ridiculous.
It happened to me.
Happened to you. I'm sure. It's amazing. My mother got a call one time that there was a warrant for her arrest. My mother was terminally ill, and she was at home, and she got a call that there was a warrant out for her arrest, and she had to pay a ticket. She had never received this speeding ticket. She had to pay for this ticket and send that money in on a bond, or they were going to come and arrest her. Now, fortunately, my mom gets a hold of me. I'm in California, 3,000 miles away. I know the sheriff, I know the clerks, I know everybody in our hometown. And I start making some calls. My sister, on the other hand, bought into it. And she's off trying to pay this to keep mom out of jail. And I'm like, they're not putting a terminal person in jail in Carrollton. The sheriff's not doing it. But those things are happening. We had a 101-year-old client who was called and told it was her grandchild in Mexico. That's where I got it from. And she took off to go wire money. She was a very wealthy person. The person on the other end evidently knew it. And she took off, and she was headed to wire the money. If she had been able to drive, she would have done it. But she needed a caregiver to take her, and the caregiver let me know we're going to be transporting. And I'm like, no, got a hold of the son, got it stopped. But it's happening. So you're entitled to not be financially abused and taken advantage of. Who financially abuses our seniors the most? Family members.
Yeah.
Family members. Sometimes it's not for the most, sometimes it is just completely theft and it's dishonorable, and sometimes it's, well, I'm going to borrow this money and I'm going to invest it here and I'm going to set her and me up. And lo and behold, they lose the money themselves. And who loses the money but you? So we see it all the time. Adult Protective Services is busy. They're busy. And that's sad. It's sad to think that there are that many people that are that taken advantage of. And I have a good working relationship with our Adult Protective Services here. And I talked with their supervisor one day and I said, so this has gone on, what can you do? And he said, nothing. And I'm like, but it's blatant and we have video evidence. And he's like, Sam, it's like going into triage in a war. He said, this person's coming in with a cut, a laceration, and this person came in with their arm blown off. Who are we going to treat? Where are we going to go with what we've got to do? We're going over here, and we're putting our resources here. And unfortunately, it's going on so much. Abuse and neglect. It's there. And so you have a right to speak up. You have a right to say no. You have a right to say, leave me alone. You have a right to your own privacy. And I know it doesn't seem like it with people walking in and out of your doors around here and checking on you and looking and do you need this, do you need that? But yeah, there's times when you can say, lock my door and leave me alone. You're allowed to. You have a right to have private moments. You have a right to have intimate moments. And that's not a conversation we're having today, but you have that right. You're still human beings. So don't allow anybody to take that away from you, and don't ever feel like that you don't have a right. Don't feel like you don't have a choice. You have a right to complain. Some of you use that voice very loudly, and you do it very well, and that's okay. You have a right to. You have a right to say, hey, I don't like the way this is run. I don't like the way this is done. I don't like this food. I don't like this drink. I don't like this or that. You have that as a right, and you should be listened to. okay? You should be heard. If you have a problem with a service that we're doing as a company, I want to know. I want to be able to fix it. Can I always fix everything instantaneously? I wish. The world would be a little different in my life. But I do want to know, and I want to hear that feedback and those complaints. And here's the one that we're going to talk most about. You have a right to choose. So, how many of you have landed in the hospital in the last year or since COVID? Okay. COVID changed things. If it wasn't bad before, it is horrible now. COVID took away so many of the safety nets that were in place to protect you in those situations that it's literally disgusting, okay? There's a woman from our community right now that is stuck in a SNF that she didn't want to be in. SNF is a skilled nursing facility. The hospitalist, the discharge planner, came in and told her, you don't have a choice, you have to go. You don't have a choice, you have to go. Let me tell you what, each and every one of you, please hear me. You have a choice. If they come in the room and they say, you're not allowed to go home, they're lying to you. You are allowed to go home. The only thing they can say is, we can't send you home without care. That's fair. That's fair. That's them protecting themselves. That's them protecting you. That's okay. But they're not allowed to tell you, you can't go home. You have to go to a skilled nursing. So today, I got a call. Jamie got a call. And this woman was darn near hysterical, insisting that she needed to talk to me by name. And that so-and-so had already spoke to me about this situation. I hadn't spoken to anybody about any situation. I was in my office, but I hadn't done any phone conversation. So I called the woman. She's up in Northern California, and she begins to tell me the story. She is power of attorney for her sister-in-law and brother-in-law here in our area. Her sister-in-law is in the hospital. Her sister-in-law is married. Her husband's at home. He's got heart issues. He's got lung issues, and he's legally blind. And she's been his primary caregiver, but they're a married couple. They're in their late 80s, okay? They still live independently up until she had a fall. And in the fall, she fractured 4 vertebrae. So she's in some pain. The hospital discharge planner told this person they had to move to an assisted living. She said, well, my husband and I have talked about it. She said, well, you're going. She called and contacted an assisted living in our community, sent their nurse and their intake coordinator to the husband's house, to the home, to meet with the husband, and told her, your day will end at this assisted living, and he'll be there in a couple days. Okay. Now, this was so orchestrated that they'd already done the TB test on her in the hospital and been able to read it. So 2 days ago, this was already in the works. They knew what they were doing. She didn't want to leave her home. She'd been in her home with her husband for quite a number of years. Her stuff's there. Her dog's there. And they told this woman she didn't have a choice. So, sister-in-law is on the phone with me. I'm on one cell phone talking to the sister-in-law while her husband is on the other cell phone talking to his brother, it's actually his brother-in-law, while this intake coordinator and nurse are there telling him he has to sign. And I'm like, over here, literally telling them, no, you don't have to. If you don't want to leave your home and go, you do not have to sign this agreement. Nobody can make you. Okay. So he finally tells them to leave. They leave, and within a minute, the phone rings again, and it's the hospital discharge planner kind of scolding the POA up north that they had sent this assisted living away. I went to the hospital. I sat with this woman. There's not one thing about her wants to move into that community. She wants to have a choice of where she lives, and she has a right to have a choice. Okay? So what we're seeing and what we saw throughout COVID, and it's continuing into a different level now, is we're seeing discharge planners and social workers in these settings who are taking all control away from you and telling you what you have to do. And I'm telling you, you don't have to. Okay? They do it with skilled nursing facilities. They will tell you, you have to go. No, you don't. Okay? But once you're there, it is almost an act of Congress to get you out, because once you've gone and you're admitted, if you leave there, you're going AMA, against medical authorization. And then Medicare won't cover. And then you're in pocket to cover for whatever they've told you. So please know, and please be, the conversations that need to happen are the conversations that are real. Do you want to go to a place like that? Know that answer now, okay? And it could be absolutely no, I never do, but wait a minute. What if my condition, I'm on a vent and I'm improving, but I can't stay in the hospital? Well, maybe I will go for a little while, for a short period of time. So there's no absolutes. Please understand that. There's never a, I don't want to. There's a, I want to have the choice. I always want to be able to say what I want. So do I want to be on a vent? No, it's not the first thing I can think of that I really wanted to do today. But if it's what keeps me alive till I recover, so that I'm there to see that cute little 2-month-old continue to grow, then by golly, yeah, put me on a vent today. Okay? So none of those decisions that we make in our youth, or even in our 40s and 50s, or in our 60s and 70s, none of those are absolutes. There's always going to be gray. So while you may not want to go to a skilled nursing facility, there may be something that warrants that you need to. I will be honest with you, and I don't say this to be ugly about anybody. I'm not here to slam any other agency or any hospital. I haven't told you what hospital. I haven't told you skilled nursing. That's not my job, okay? But absolutely what she said is real. The worst sores we have ever seen in our lives come from a quote unquote skilled nursing facility. The worst treatment I have ever seen. So unfortunately, most of them are very ill-equipped and very undermanaged. They're just not. There should never be a time when someone's incontinent that they're not being changed at least at a minimum every 3 to 4 hours, and I prefer 2 to 3, because perspiration breaks down skin. We had a resident who had left here, ended up in a skilled nursing, and when he came back, we literally saw his tailbone. The hole in his bottom was that deep, and it took months. But miraculously, we were able to actually get that to heal over and tissue to grow back. So the problem we have is, the problem we always will have is money will always be the reason why people aren't getting what they need. It's unfortunate. And so if I can staff one person for this many people, and instead of 2 or 3 people, and I can save all that money and put it in my pocket, well, that's what I'm going to do. And if that one person is not trained well, and they're not monitored well, and they're not managed well, then they do what we know happens, which is they leave you lay there, they don't change you, they don't rehabilitate you, they don't give you the PT and the physical therapy that you deserve and you should have. And I understand. It is so much easier to say, okay, I'm going here, and for 100 days, I don't have to pay for anything, versus I'm going home and I have to pay for care. And I get it, I do. And I get that some people, there's no other choice. There's no means to being taken care of. But if you're here, then by golly, you better have the loudest screaming voice to complain every single moment of every single day. You're not changing me. You're not getting me up. You're not getting the PT. I'm going to call my family member. I'm going to call Sam. I'm going to call somebody. And I'm going to have this blasted all over social media if you don't take care of me, because you deserve to be taken care of. I get that some people just can't afford to have caregivers come in. I feel for that. I would love to see the laws changed. I really would. Medicare, it has been before Congress so many times to have Medicare start covering home care. And it keeps getting shot down. And we're not going to get into the politics of the whys, but the reality is it's something that's essential and it needs to be covered. And we're not doing it, but then we'll cover a skilled nursing facility that leaves you laying in your muck and your ruck. And then once you get there, then you feel so defeated. The fight to get out and get back is so hard. And then you'll hear from people, oh, I'd just rather die. But you were playing cards and living and engaged. Yeah, but this is all I've got to look forward to. The lady today literally looked at me and said, I thought this was the end. I thought I was dying. And I'm like, honey, you're cognitively normal. You're in your late 80s. You're beautiful as can be. You're a little dehydrated because you're not drinking. And you fractured some vertebra and you're in pain, but it's controlled and they're healing and you're not doing poorly. Physically, you're in probably maybe even better shape than I am. And you thought this was the end of your life because they told you can't go home and you're not going to see your dog and your husband will be there in a few more days and bye-bye all your stuff. That's not okay. And we've got to stop it. And the only people that can stop it, honestly, are going to be you guys. You know, if you want to revolt, please. I mean, I don't know how many of you were the kind that wanted to carry the picket signs and protest, but that's what we need. We need a true protest and a revolt against bad care for seniors. And how are we ever going to get it? I mean, I'm not lying. I called Trish, who's Amazing Grace, and said, all right, we need an advocacy group up here, and I don't need to bite off another thing, and I don't have enough hours in the day, but we've got to start something that says that when you go in the hospital, I'm coming, and I'm going to make sure that they're not pulling the wool over your eyes. In COVID, we had family members that would go to the hospital, and it would literally be months before family members would find out where the hell they put them. They would move them down to a skilled nursing down the hill because the ones up here were filled. And we would have them on the phone with us. Where do you know how we can find them? No. And they're moving people around and they're not contacting the people that are in charge. You know, the couple up north that talked to me today, they're legal powers of attorney over this woman. They hold the paperwork and the hospital wouldn't talk to them. And that's not okay. We've got to put a stop to it. And I don't know what that answer is, but I've never seen things to be the level they are now ever before. I've never seen this kind of neglect and abuse of power. So the thing I'm here to do today is empower you enough to know that if it's you, if it's a loved one, if it's a neighbor, if it's a friend, if it's somebody that you hate but you don't want to see them go to a skilled nursing, stand up for them and scream and shout and complain, because that's what we've got to start doing. You know, when you guys leave here and you go to the hospitals, we're literally trying our darndest to check with family members and contacts and people that we know to keep up with you. The facility is, we are as caregivers, we want to know what's going on. And when family members ask, my advice is always, if you can bring them home, we'll do everything we can to take care of them. Okay? The other one that they like to do in the hospitals, and I'm sure it happens, is they like to choose which hospice agency or home health agency you're going to be put with. They can't do that. You have a choice. So know beforehand. Think about those things beforehand. Investigate beforehand. And not all hospices are alike, okay? Not all home healths are alike. Some hospices cover certain things and some cover other things. And it's kind of weird because there's this pocket of money that goes, you get admitted and a X number of dollars goes to that agency. Well, that agency has to cover any medications that's related to your hospice condition. Okay, so if you're going in for heart failure, they're going to cover your blood pressure meds, they're going to cover your Lasix, they're going to cover your potassium, they're going to cover anything that's related to that condition. But if you're diabetic, they're not going to cover your insulin as well, okay? Because that's not your hospice qualifying condition, all right? So there may be some medications that you still have to pick up and the family still has to make sure that you're getting, okay? And please don't ever let anybody take your insulin away if you're diabetic and you go on hospice. You still need it till the day that you're no longer with us and you go through your final sunset. Don't let anybody tell you it's not important. You're on hospice. It's still important, I promise. So they have to cover those things. They have to cover all the visits from all the disciplines. Disciplines are the CNA, the one that comes and does the bathing, the ones that do the bed baths or the shower assist. They're also your LVNs. They're the ones that are doing your more common checks. They're the ones that are coming in 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes less, and they're checking you out and they're reporting back to your RN case manager. RN case manager still has to see you occasionally, okay? So they have less visits from the RN, and as it goes up the scale, you think about this. You can get that bathing aid maybe 3 times a week and find out how many times do they offer. Because some agencies will say, well, we only have to do it once a week, so we're only going to offer you 1 a week. Well, I'm incontinent and I'm laying in bed, and I'd really like to be cleaned more frequently. Well, we only offer once a week. That's not the agency to choose, okay? Because they get to determine how they're spending that money. Then the LVN visits, they also get to decide how many you get. And they're supposed to increase them as your condition worsens. Okay? And then they cover the doctor who oversees it all. He gets a little piece of the pie. And then all the admin and all those things. The supplies is where it comes in really interesting. And we work with every hospice agency out there. And some hospice agencies, they're supposed to cover your incontinence supplies, right? So if you're incontinent, now I said at a minimum every 3 to 4 hours. So in a 24-hour day, if we went to the worst case of every 4 hours, you're getting 6 changes a day, right? Do the math really quick. That's 42 a week, okay? Well, are you going to provide me 42 or are you going to provide me 30? Because if you're only going to provide me 30, then that means that there's 12 changes I've either got to pay for or miss. Make sense?
Yeah.
And we see it all the time where we're like, hey, they need more supplies. Well, they don't get any more supplies yet. What do you mean they don't get any more supplies? We just had Montezuma's Revenge go through the building, and they've been pouring it out like it was Niagara Falls. We need help. I'm sorry, we don't have any more briefs for them. We've had that happen, and we're like, what? And so then we go to you. You're laying there with Montezuma's Revenge. Maybe you have family on board, maybe you don't. And we're like, can you run down to Rite Aid here and buy yourself some briefs? It's not cool. We don't want to do that, okay? So we want to know, investigate, what do they provide? Do they provide the chucks that go underneath? That's part of incontinent care, right? Having a chuck underneath of you. Are they providing that? Are they providing the wipes to clean your skin and creams to protect your skin? Are they providing the gloves to protect you from the people that are helping you and protect them from you as well? Okay? Some agencies, no gloves. They don't do it. Nope, not providing them. What? You going to come in here and change them without gloves on? Because they don't want me changing them without gloves on. And frankly, I don't want to change them without gloves on. Oh, sorry, we don't provide those. Okay. Wipes. Nope, we don't provide those. Well, what are we supposed to clean them with? Well, you can get a washcloth. Oh, okay. You'd be surprised at the things that some agencies will nickel and dime us on. And we're like, ugh. So yeah, we know the agencies that provide the most and the ones that provide the least, and some will start off strong and they'll kind of peter out, and some of them will come into, and maybe a DC happens, and it's somebody gets discharged from the hospital or admitted to hospice, and they haven't had time to supply the supplies, so we'll rush in with them. We know the agencies that work well and the ones that don't, but I'm not here to tell you which ones to choose. That's yours to investigate. Call them. Do it now. Do it with a family member if you have a family member. Do it with a caregiver if you have a caregiver, but call and ask those questions. What do you provide? How many changes per week are considered normal? How frequently am I going to get those supplies? Because when you run out of them is when you need them the most. Okay? So check those things out. You have that right to choose and decide. You have the yes, no, maybes. You have a right to pick your own guardianship. Okay? And please do, and again, we talked about this, it doesn't have to be the knucklehead, meth addict, family member. We all have one that we just don't trust. Everybody has a family member that they just don't trust as much as somebody else. You don't have to pick them because they're first in line, okay? Pick the ones that you know are going to have your best interest, not their own. And if you don't have a family member that does, because some of us don't have that family member that we know that we're going to be able to rely on, pick a friend. Find somebody that you can trust. I will tell you that it's not legal to pick your caregiver. Okay? It's not. And a lot of people do it. And I'm like, the only way you can assign your caregiver as your POA is to literally go in front of a lawyer and have competency figured out and make sure that there's not any coercion going on. Because as a caregiver, as an owner of an agency, as somebody who's done a lot of care, I have a little bit of connection, and I could maybe manipulate weaknesses. I could possibly convince you that your son or your daughter or this other person isn't who you think they are. I have that ability as a caregiver, and a lot of caregivers do. And if you're using it to do it that way, you're not really a caregiver, okay? You're not doing right by the person. Now, there are times when those family members are lowlifes. They are. They haven't been around in 22 years. They've not seen you. They don't know diddly dink about you. They don't care. All they're going to do is show up after all's said and done, and you've gone through that beautiful final sunset with that loving caregiver, and they're going to say, "Where's my check?" Because we see that all the time as well. So you have the right to pick out who is going to be responsible for you and take care of you and watch over you. Okay? You just need to go through the hoops and do it the right way and make sure that person isn't there for their own gain. You should never have somebody that's like, "Oh, well, yeah, I'm going to get this. And hey, what about the car? Who's going to get the car? Can I have the car?" If they're doing that, you don't need that, okay? You don't need that person. You have that right to pick your own doctors. And we did go off script quite a bit because of what happened today. But you have a right to pick your own doctors. So if you've got a doctor that's a knucklehead, doesn't listen to you, thinks that everything you have to say is foolish, doesn't take the time to listen to anything you have to say, which is oftentimes the case, you have a right to kick them out, okay? You have a right to say, "No, I want a different doctor." And it's okay. That's your choice. Make it and make sure that you're comfortable with it. You have a right to set up your will the way that you want to set it up, okay? I understand that there's always family influences. There's always somebody that thinks they're entitled. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You owe no one anything, okay? You owe no one anything outside of yourselves, right? I have given all of my children everything that I should have given them, and that was life and a way to make their own living. And if they want something from me, they can come and talk to me. I'm totally open to that, but I don't owe them anything. So if I choose to go to Vegas on my last dime and have a heck of a party. I get to do that. And they can't be mad about it. They can be mad, but they can't do anything, okay? So you don't owe anybody anything. All right? Your money, your doctors, your last will, and your guardianship. And everything in between. You have a right to choose. Let's see what's next. You don't have to put up with bad health care, okay? There are just some knuckleheads out there that are in it for all the wrong reasons. There are some that are in it for the right reasons that have been corrupted by a really bad system. Find the soft spot in them, because there are some nurses and doctors and caregivers that have just been corrupted by a really bad system. Okay? Not everybody. I still like to look for the good in people. Okay? Even when they're knuckleheads sometimes. But you don't have to put up with bad care. If you've got a bad caregiver, if you've got a bad nurse, if you've got a bad doctor, speak up, report it, say something. And you'll get that cute little doctor. I don't know why I liked his picture. He's pretty cute. Little doogie there. And you have a right to choose about this. So many times, you have to take your medicine. Really? Do I? Nope. Today's the day I'm not going to take that. You really do get to choose. You also get to deal with the consequences of not taking it. Don't take your blood pressure medicine, I guarantee you're probably going to have a headache. Don't take your Lasix, you're probably going to have some edema in your legs or maybe some heaviness in your chest. But you do have a right to choose, and it's not okay for people to tell you you don't. Okay? You have a right to choose to eat cake, even if you're diabetic or you're overweight or you have a heart condition. You have a right. There's not anybody. Look around this room, and there's maybe one person who's the right size and completely fit. All of us have a little extra something going somewhere, or a little less of what we should have. We all get to choose, okay? You get the rights. Don't let anybody take that away. If you want to eat cake and you want to eat pie and you're diabetic, guess what? You get to eat cake and pie. You're an adult, you get to decide, okay? If you've made it to this age and it hasn't killed you yet, it's not going to, and if it does, are you going to be happy with that flavor of cake or pie? Enjoy life. And I have to say this only because I think it's an interesting law, and we're getting really close to the end. So California is one of 30 states that has a filial responsibility law. And I know that sounds like a really weird thing to say, but that means that if you don't have the means to pay for your own care and your own way, your children are on the hook. Okay? California regulates it. 30 states in the United States say it. And that means that if you are completely destitute, your children have to financially help support you. Now, don't count on that. There's only two people that can sue that child. One, the county, if they're the ones picking up the tab. And they may. Okay? So if you've got this child who's sitting on a bank full of money, and if you do, please introduce them to me. I give them my phone number. No, if you've got a child that's got a ton of money and they're not doing diddly dink and you're homeless and living in a car on the streets, you don't have the means to pay for anything and the county's picking up the tab and the county finds out, they may go after them. Okay? So the county can sue them and you can sue them as a senior, but nobody else can. Your caregivers can't, your spouses can't, your other children can't. So if you have this one very wealthy, he's that highfalutin business dude that's done really, really well, and he's not opening up the purse strings, and the poor kids are over here helping and trying, they can't go after their brother who they haven't spoken to in many, many years and try and get him to pay. But you could. I just think it's an interesting law because we don't owe our kids anything, but our kids do owe us. As I look back to make sure eye contact with him. So after I go to Vegas and I spend the last bit, Tom and Jamie have to take me in.